All right, Willie, doing another doubleheader. We just got off with the council, talking all about the Disney investor meeting, but we're keeping the party going, and we are talking Mandalorian Chapter 15, the penultimate episode of Season 2, The Believer, directed by Rick. I'm going to destroy his last name, and I apologize, Famuyiwa, and he directed the Prison Break episode last season, which also included the character of Mayfeld, played by Bill Burr, who makes an appearance in this episode as well. So, just quickly, the Mandalorian needs to find Grogu, and Grogu's not even in this episode, by the way.
Yeah.
Not in it at all, and that hasn't been. I think this is the first episode of the show that Grogu hasn't been in, and it survived.
Uh,
But
uh,
we'll possibly not. The Mandalorian needs to find the coordinates of Moff Gideon's cruiser, so he enlists the help of Bill Burr to break into an Imperial facility to get that Willie. Let's start with a positive. What
uh,
was your favorite part about episode or chapter 15, The Believer,
um, Nothing.
when it ended?
I literally, so like on my notes for my favorite, I just have I don't know. um,
You're down on this episode.
I'm quite down in this episode. Yeah. I mean, I think my favorite thing it is interesting is also, I mean, is closely, or I should say, yeah, it's tied to the hip to my least favorite thing. I do like when they bring in these bigger moral questions. And like I really like Game of Thrones does this in the books really well, and in the show tried to do it, where it was like, oh, all of these big figures are playing this game, but like the actual public life sucks, and
Right.
it's and so you kind of touched on this in between, but the difference in Game of Thrones is whoever is king or queen at any given time, it normally does suck for the people. I think Star Wars has a much different moral center that makes that harder to ask.
Yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
and so my favorite thing is I like that they're trying to do stuff like this. I don't like how they did it. I don't think they pulled it off. So I'd almost rather it not be there.
Yeah. I'm gonna I'm just gonna use my didn't like now and say because it's the conversation in the truck. And again, we talked about this in between, but this is the conversation that Disney Star Wars has posed. Now this is the third time. Exactly like what you said about Game of Thrones. It's the wheel conversation. Like it doesn't matter who's on top. It's all the same. And Star Wars has posed this in Rogue One, it's posed this in The Last Jedi, and it's posed this now. And I think it's been the most effective in this because it actually is relevant to the character that it's discussing. But the question is, like, it doesn't matter if you're part of the Empire or if you're part of the Rebellion because, like, they're both killing people and they're both making the galaxy terrible. And I just think that that's just a fundamentally incorrect assumption about the Star Wars mythos. Like, it is like George Lucas designed it to be a very over the top, straightforward, like Flash Gordon serial in which it's mythic. There are universal goods and bads. Now it's a war, so the rebellion does do things that are unfortunate. Like they kill people. You
Yeah,
know, they blow up the Death Star. There are stormtroopers on the Death Star that died, and
yeah. And I'm all here for, either things that look at the rebellion in not 100% positive light, or I'm here for things that, look at, how, like, yes, war is generally bad for all of these exterior planets, no matter what's going on. I'm here for that type of stuff. This is actually, a lot of the problem I had with, um, when they brought it up in the films, was I just felt that they didn't take it far enough. They were just like, oh, like they're just like, oh, like, and I mean, I think that's just shuffling the directors, and I think he just managed to sneak some of it in there without anyone noticing, and then nothing else was done with it. Um, but yeah, like I like the idea of the Jedi, being wrong and being fallible, and that is very different, and we've talked about this on past episodes, that is very different, like you said, from the legendary there is good and there is bad, and I think that is just a shift, in total between the mind frame of your general person in 2020 as opposed to the very hero worship genre films that you saw when Star Wars first came out. That was very much the thing. It's the hero story, and now we're seeing a popularity in shows that are delving into the gray. Anti-hero stuff, or anything that's looking at I mean, I never would have thought we'd see an anti-capitalist Star Wars movie, and Star Wars can do that. I just think it has to do it well, and I don't think you can do that. I don't think you can't convince me the argument that they're trying to make in this episode, which is the genocidal empire is just as bad as the Republic.
Right. Exactly. And that you just have to, and what Bill Burr quote specifically is, you just do what you need to do so that, and make sure you can sleep at night, which he's basically telling Mando, and see, it makes sense for Mando, who's he's been struggling with his identity the whole season. He's struggling with okay, is the child my mission or is the child my child? I think we do get an answer to that at the end of this episode, and I think the conversation kind of facilitates that a little bit. But also, it's just, again, it just feels very out of place, and it's just I get it. I understand that there are nuances to it, but at a certain point, the nuances stop, and you really do have to take it for what it is. And they're the rebellion is good, okay?
Yeah.
The Empire is bad.
And I think, and like I said, I have I'm fine with like I said, they've done some of this earlier on in the season, talking about how, the Republicans the Republicans, God damn it. The New Republic is essentially cops. And I'm especially, in the year 2020, that's interesting because, and that's, a lot of people have talked about that just in terms of the Jedi. The Jedi were cops with laser swords who grew too corrupt and too powerful. And, so you can make those arguments. And I think you should be making those arguments in fantasy mediums. I just don't think it's successful here. I think the other thing is, I think especially coming after last week's episode, I think it's very jarring. This episode, I feel should have been episode 2 or 3 of this series. To me, breaking up last week, which was one of the best episodes the show's ever done, and then completely removing us from all of the momentum we had going towards Moff Gideon, no.
All right, so I enjoyed this episode a lot. I wouldn't say it's top tier of this season, but I really did enjoy it. So my favorite moment of the episode is the end of the episode where our Mandalorian gets his Liam Neeson Taken moment, and he shows up in Moff Gideon's cruiser and via hologram, and he quotes Moff Gideon to himself by saying, "You have something I want," and then he says about the child, "He means more to me than you will ever know." And basically, it's just I'm coming for you. And I was like, this is awesome. I love this. This is what I wanted last episode. I think it's almost a 10 out of 10 for me if there had been another moment where Mando was like, I'm going to get this kid back. I've decided that this kid is my kid and it's not my mission anymore. This is my child. But I feel this moment was just so nice. And I was like, heck yes, I'm so pumped for when it happened and everything he said. I'm yes, love it. I can't wait to see the showdown.
Well, and it's interesting too, because that's one of the things we've been talking about over the whole course of this season is how much he actually cares for the child. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the show has answered that fully yet. I think it's building towards that answer. But yeah, it'll be. I am not worried about next episode at all. But just this one wasn't doing it for me.
They're not all gonna be hits, but what did anything surprise you about this episode?
Surprised me. trying to think if anything hit me in a good or bad.
Because I gotta tell you, I was really surprised by Bill Burr. I did not like his character of Mayfeld in the season 1 Prison Break episode, and I actually enjoyed him here. I thought he was toned down a bit. He wasn't over the top, like in the first episode. He's like he calls the Mandalorian a dick, and it just seems like, okay, this guy, like literally, you just removed this guy from a bar and put him into a Star Wars show. Whereas this one, he actually felt like a character in the show. Like he still has his accent and he still has that bit of a gruff, but it actually felt like, when, especially in the very Tarantino-y drinking scene at the end with the Imperial officer, um, he has some dramatic range, and I was into it. So I was really surprised by Bill Burr.
Yeah, so I don't have. I'm was trying to come up with something for surprise because I didn't have anything written down for that either. But I do want to go with. I think I'm going to go with them, mentioning the prequels and Boba Fett mentioning that they might recognize his face.
Yeah,
like that, because that was interesting because I'm still not quite buying the idea that Boba Fett would be this anti-imperial.
mm-hmm.
But I thought it was interesting that he was just like, I don't think we've ever had, like, this is a huge plot that they do in the prequels that all the clone troopers look the same, and then they like really don't touch it besides that. Nope. So that was a nice little moment.
That was nice. I like Boba. What we already talked about my not like, and I know you were just down on the whole episode. Is there anything specific about the episode that you're just like, ugh, I'm out on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my overall thing with this episode was it reminded me of all of the weaknesses that this show's had. I mean, we're talking about, we've talked about it being a video game. Well, here was your transport mission, and you have to deliver the bomb before it blows up, and you're on a train while someone's up top trying to keep people from blowing the thing up. And I was like, okay, we get it. It's the same with the setup. It was very heavy-handed in, I need to go here, so I need to find this person. Well, then I need to find this person, but then, we can't all go inside because of this. And then, it was just very, very, very heavy-handed with the plotting. And I even thought, there was one moment in particular when they're in the tank. Is it a tank? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Tank train.
Truck.
They're in the tank train, and Bill Burr, is like, so what is the rule? Like, can you take your helmet off? Can you not? And I was just like, no. I'm like, that's what, the show should not be saying that question out loud.
Yes.
I felt like, and even the whole well, I can't go in there because that officer is going to remember me, but I can have a whole conversation with him. But I can't go in there, so you should go in there because that means you're gonna have to take your helmet off. No, that.
There are absolutely a couple moments in this episode where I'm like, that's a big, the fact that no one else can go, so M.A.N.D.O has to go because he cares so much about the child. Again, he doesn't say that, but it's like you're trying to give this dramatic weight. And let's actually jump to that moment where, in order to get the codes, you just need a facial scan. Now, but you don't have to be Imperial. You just need a facial scan, and Bill Burr can't do it because he's a convict. But the Mandalorian can do it, and it just works. But it doesn't explain why it works.
No, it was a very, very, after a season and a half of us wondering if we were going to see his face or not, I feel like this was the silliest way possible they could get him to take off his helmet.
Agreed. And it could have been such a, you and I talked about this last episode, is that I thought that the final poster would be, helmetless M.A.N.D.O, because it would be a big moment for him to realize that, to save my son, I have to sacrifice, I have to become something else. And I think maybe, that would have been nice. He goes to rescue Grogu, and Grogu's drowsy, and he takes off his helmet, and he's like, hey, it's like Dad's here.
Yeah.
But instead it's this very ham-fisted, this computer needs to scan your face.
I'm not here for it.
I get you.
I mean, it's like especially especially with everything that they've done to like avoid him having to do it, and then yeah, I just there were a lot of parts of this episode that I didn't think were working.
Did you like anything about this episode, or was there anything specific that you found, like, not that you loved it, but you were just like, I'm okay with that?
Like I said, I'm glad. I like that they're trying to answer these types of questions, and like I like us seeing like planets that are destroyed by both sides. I like us seeing more of the inner workings of the Imperials. The idea that this is something that went on after the fall. I really like these ideas. I just feel like this that I don't think The Mandalorian is necessarily a deep or complex show, and I think they tried to do tackle a lot of stuff in this episode, and I'm glad
Yeah.
that they tried. I just don't think they necessarily know how to pull something like that off in the context of what The Mandalorian is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this would have fit better as like a season 3 show once this show really got its footing as to what it has, and then you can start poking holes into what the show is and what the universe is, instead of just having a very video gamey episode in which a larger conversation about the Star Wars universe takes place within. Um, I really liked mine's a silly thing, but I really loved the Jango Fett callback to when Boba Fett is fighting the two TIE fighters at the end, and he drops the seismic charge that Jango used on Obi-Wan Kenobi from Attack of the Clones. I was like, that's such a nice callback to that, and I always thought that was a cool moment. So I really appreciated that and how cool it was. Anything you tracked in this episode that you want to keep an eye on for future episodes that, outside of the obvious plot machinations? Because to be honest, I really didn't pick up anything here that I want to clock for future. I didn't really see any development that I was like, oh, that's an interesting thread that they're leaving unanswered.
I mean, I think the I mentioned this before. I think the thread that I'm still most interested in is there's got to be something that happened between Boba and the Empire that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, and just I would be really like, we've talked about them doing all these spin-off shows and stuff like that, but like a spin-off show from the point of the Imperials would be very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think they were necessarily trying to set anything up here with that, but I think just stepping inside an Imperial mess hall is again an interesting part of Star Wars, we've never really seen before.
No, it was cool, except I can't turn off my brain. So, like, as soon as they were like, it's a mess hall, I kept thinking of that Adam Driver SNL skit where he's Matt the radar technician, which a lot of that takes place in the Imperial mess hall. So I was like, oh boy. Yeah, I think it's a fair point. There are interesting elements to that. What is going on with this empire specifically now that the Palpatine Empire has fallen. So what's going on here? But the episode is called The Believer. And to be honest with you, I don't have a good explanation for why. Now, most of the episodes titled this season are like extremely straightforward, like the Marshal in relation to the Marshal Cobb Band, or the Heiress in relation to Boba Fett or the Jedi Ahsoka Tano. Am I missing something? Like, I honestly don't know why this episode is called The Believer, because I didn't really get that the big conversation in the tank train, was about belief in something. Like, it wasn't a belief in the Force, and I didn't really think it was a belief in the larger Rebellion Empire conversation, and I didn't really get a sense that it was about belief in yourself. So I have no idea why this episode is called The Believer, unless I missed something very obvious.
No, I mean the only, I just thought about this. The only thing I could kind of see is it being about Mando's belief in like the Mandalorian creed.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
that's the only, but I mean even that I think is like that's not the kind like I know they tried to like make that what the conversation was about, but like that's not the conversation that they had.
No.
And even like it's like, oh, like, well, so he cares about this kid enough to take off his helmet, but like, is that like we don't know enough about him or the creed or anything like that for that to really like what does that mean? Like he took his helmet off and he said he never would, like,
Right,
but
I guess the way, so he broke his vow, I guess, but
yeah,
like,
or did he decide that's not what he believed anymore? Like, it's going to be interesting if this whole show is about a Mandalorian who's not a Mandalorian deciding that he doesn't want to be a Mandalorian,
right.
like, which might be very much where we're headed.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
you pointed this out, earlier in when we met the actual Mandalorians, but them, kind of throwing it back in his face.
yeah,
Like, oh, like you're,
one of them.
yeah, you're one of them. So, is that the arc of this season of him losing the identity of being a Mandalorian? But again, when the show doesn't really have a grip on what being a Mandalorian means.
Agreed. Like they have not made a firm statement one way or the other. They haven't made Bo-Katan like, I mean, they made her heroic, but they didn't make her, this pinnacle that he aspires to. So the only thing I was thinking of that else, I think you're probably right in that it has something to do with the creed. The only thing else I was thinking of while we were talking is perhaps it's in reference to the imperial officer that they're drinking with, because he is such a firm believer in the Empire, and we see what that got him. So they're talking about, Bill Burr mentions Operation Cinder, which, believe it or not, is a Star Wars Battlefront 2, not early 2000s Battlefront 2, but Disney era, like just a few years ago, Battlefront 2 story campaign, in which once the Operation Cinder is when the Empire is dead, the all of the Imperial ships are instructed to destroy planets, like just basically rain fire from the skies. So that's what they're talking about. And the Imperial officer references, yeah, they killed a bunch of people and stormtroopers died, and who cares? It doesn't matter because we're all bad anyways. That's what the show is trying to say. And Bill Burr ends up killing that Imperial officer. So my only thought is like, is he the believer? Is he the believer in the cause and that like senseless devotion to a cause? So Mando being, so strict in his devotion to the creed can only end up in a certain way, and that he has to be malleable. I mean, that's all I can come up with.
That's the smartest thing I've heard about this episode. So maybe you're onto something. Maybe you're giving it way too much credit.
It's possible.
But no, I mean, I think you could really be onto something there, because it does provide a parallel for Mando. Is he is being flexible enough. And so I do think that I think that very well could be what the believer was referring to, because it normally is new characters as well.
Yeah.
And so it's showing the difference between him and Mando. But I still, the part of that I still struggle with is I think there's a big difference in the Mandalorian creed and being an Imperial officer.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, which we talked about, because there are universal, like there are definitely lines.
Yeah, and I think I think that makes that a little tricky. But yeah, I don't know. This was just, they threw this weird dance of morals in between two episodes that, last episode was fantastic and had so much momentum. And I mean, and again, this was another weird side trip that he had to take to do a thing, to find a person, to get a key, to unlock the chest. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. I felt like the things that the show struggles with most were at play here. Maybe more than any other episode this season. I'm going back and forth on that, but
yeah. This is the classic definition of, as my wife puts it, an in-betweener in an RPG. This is not really relevant to the larger story, but it's just something that you have to do to advance the plot in some way, and it's just kind of like there, and no one cares about it. So.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's interesting because like him finally taking his helmet off should be a big deal.
Should be.
And I just don't. I just think that yeah, they
it,
just
it ends up just kind of falling flat.
yeah.
And um, again, I'm more positive on the episode, but we're gonna go through. I have a bunch of in and outs for you, so
Okay.
we're just gonna rapid fire go through the episode. You give me your in out. I want to start here. The prison planet. So the New Republic controlled prison planet, in which the New Republic basically has like droid guards that are just like bad prison guards that are threatening to beat up Bill Burr. Are you in or out on the New Republic prison planet?
I'm in on it actually.
I liked it too, actually.
I, I thought it was cool. I thought like and the actual thought I had was very similar to I do think that this is one of the things that Force Awakens does really well is like having Rey live in like the body of like a blown up, AT-AT. And so
Yeah.
this is the same thing. And I was like, oh, like no, just having them work on like dismantling old ties or fixing old ties, whatever. I was like, nah, that's cool. Like I'm here for that.
Yeah, I liked it too. Okay, Boba Fett's new look. I know
No,
I wanted this last episode, and then I got it, and I was like, "Ooh, you made him look exactly like an action figure."
yeah, it's so weird. I don't like it at all.
It's very jarring. Um, are you? Did you like the inside of the Slave One with basically just like the rotating access gimbals when they're in the hangar bay? It was a really quick moment. And maybe this is just something that I noticed, but like because the Slave One is positioned in the way it was, there's like a moment where they're in the holding area and it like is spinning around like a gyrosphere.
I completely missed that.
I liked it. Um, are you in or out on Bill Burr as a whole in this episode?
I think I'm in.
I liked it too. I liked him. Are you in or out on Cara Dune punching out armored stormtroopers with her bare hands?
I'm so out.
I'm out. Stealing the trooper armor and the tank for Mando and Bill Burr.
I'm also out.
Yeah.
Star Wars needs more plot points besides stealing stormtrooper armor.
Yeah, they really do. We talked about the conversation a lot. I'm out on the conversation.
Yeah, me too.
The train heist, as you put it, with the pirates. Did anybody think that these are the like natives of the planet that the Imperials are like invading, and Mando is just senselessly murdering them so that the truck doesn't blow up, and not be like, "Hey guys, we're gonna blow up the Empire. Maybe don't fight us, and I won't murder you all."
So I was under the assumption that they were off-world pirates just because as they were driving through the village, everyone was human
Okay, I didn't. That's a fair point.
and the pirates weren't.
Okay.
But it's also I don't know. It's also like it's interesting in terms of I feel like they use pirates a lot when they don't like this was one of the things in Resistance that they used. Like there was always like these pirate raids that were neither Imperial or Republic.
Right.
So it's interesting that they're just like this weird like is there one group of pirates? Are there multiple space pirate groups? Like what's the I don't know. Anyways, I know I assumed I assumed they were not part of like not living on the planet.
That's fair. I'll allow it. And I now want a Pirates of the Caribbean Star Wars movie, but just the random pirate groups. Okay, the tie support at the end of the run where they're about to blow up and the ties come and save them, and Bill Burr says, "Never thought you'd be happy to see stormtroopers."
No, that's again too heavy-handed. It's also the like it's the same as Mando coming in when I complained about it when Mando came in right at the end of the episode and saying them too. Like we don't need these weird fake out close call things. Like it's just Star Wars. Again, same thing with the Stormtrooper uniform. Star Wars doesn't need any more of them.
Agreed. I love TIE fighters. I love the production value, but this moment I was just like, yeah, of course that they're gonna make it. I wasn't worried about it. Okay, Mando removing his helmet. I know we talked about it. I think it fell flat, but
yeah,
when it happened, I was excited. I was in on it when it happened, and the more I thought about it, the less I was like, darn.
it was nice seeing his face, and it's actually interesting because I still like his Mando voice is very, very different than his actual voice, and so
Yeah.
it's it was nice seeing him actually get to portray that character without the mask. I just think the setup for it was sloppy.
Yeah. The facial scanner.
Also out, so out.
It's really, really weird. The Tarantino, I'm calling conversation with the officer where they're all just drinking and it's trying to ratchet up that tension.
I think I'm in.
I liked it. I
Yeah.
was here for it. I would like more of that. I would like, again, you mentioned it earlier. I would like more of the Imperial viewpoint. I don't want them to be good guys. I don't really want them to be completely sympathetic, but I'm into their viewpoint.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to know more. The Battlefront 2 Operation Cinder reference, I loved it.
I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
You know, they just keep trying to weave these connections in, and it was a quick moment. It doesn't really have any bearing on the story. It was just a nice little throwaway to mention. Pedro Pascal basically being in the episode, but Bill Burr keeps talking for him, so they kept Pedro to be in the episode, and then he doesn't really have any lines. I'm out.
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, I know why they were trying to do it, but yeah.
Mayfeld killing the officer at the end of that scene.
No, that's good. I'm in with that. Yeah.
Loved it. Okay, I'm just giving you three, and they're all part of the escape. You have Fennec and Kara sniping the escape, Mayfeld and Mando trying to climb up the building, and then Boba offering the air support.
Okay, hold on. So I'm gonna say I don't remember them climbing the building. In for Boba, out for them sniping.
Okay, I'm in on all three. I liked the scene a lot. I liked the multiple components. I liked the snipers covering their escape out the window and up the building, and then I liked Boba coming in at the end. Mayfeld taking the shot to blow up the facility at the end.
That's nice. Like I like that.
Yeah. I like that, and kind of bringing back that we all need to sleep at night line was nice. Let's see. Okay. They let Mayfeld go at the end. Are you in or out on them letting him go and not bringing him back to prison?
I'm fine with them letting him go. Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with them letting him go. I have a problem with the fact that Cara Dune is the one that suggests letting him go when she was not present for the conversation in the truck or the conversation in the mess hall. Like, I mean, I suppose if they're doing like the magical, Marvel headphones where everyone can hear everyone all the time, but like Cara Dune's like, maybe we should let him go. I'm like, but you didn't know. Like, he could have been a dick the whole time. Like, Mando should have been the one we like, maybe Cara, we just let him, like, we lost him.
Yeah, that would have been better.
And then finally, the Liam Neeson taken moment. I have a particular set of skills, and I'll find you and I'll kill you from Mando.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Like, that's a good lead in for next episode's gonna be a banger.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I really liked it. Interesting though, because in the prequels we've seen Jedi and use the holograms, but in the original trilogy, the holograms are mostly just used for like Vader and the Emperor. So it's almost like I code them in my head as like when I see someone in a hologram, especially in that size, and I'm like, oh, that's bad. Like they're a bad guy, or they're at least intimidating. So when Mando showed up, like cowboy shot from the waist up, like big in that room, I was like, hell yes, I'm here for this. So I really loved that. All right, our poster conversation is. I assume that Mayfeld will be the poster for this episode.
Oh, you don't think it'll be Bill Burr?
Yeah, that's who it is. That's his character name.
Eric. Oh.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
right.
You were so out on the episode, you didn't even pay attention. You're just like, Bill Burr. So yeah, we'll see. That was my hunch that we would just get kind of a throwaway poster this one, and then I'm still hoping for Homiless Mando, but we could also get Thrawn or something at the last one, but I doubt it. Any final thoughts on this episode? I'll say I know you're down on this episode, but I thought it was I'm always surprised, and I shouldn't be anymore, about how slick the show looks. Like the production
Yeah.
value is just off the charts. I thought the acting was great in this episode. I thought the actual mission and story were just middling. I didn't think they were terrible. I wasn't really taken out of it. I enjoyed the episode. Again, I really loved the action. But any final thoughts on chapter 15?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this was a weird transition off of last week. I think they had a lot of momentum and wanted to do a set number of episodes. I think my biggest thing is just there are things that the Mandalorian does not do very well, and I think this show is a prime example of those things. So, or this week's episode, yeah.
Yeah, that's a It's a fair point. I'll give it to you. Like I can see why one would not like this episode. I mean, maybe I was just riding the hype train, but I don't. I thought it worked for me. Again, the core heart of the episode was the conversation and those big themes, and I just don't think we're there yet. So,
no, I
um,
agree.
Yep, 15 episodes of Mandalorian. I'm sorry, my fellow revolutionaries. The king himself, Max Rebo, is nowhere to be found, but there's always next time. We have one more episode of the season, and maybe we'll get lucky. Willie, give me one thing that you're really looking forward to for the next episode. Like, give me one thing that you really want to see in the finale.
I mean, I think it's kind of the obvious answer, but like we're gonna see Darksaber versus Bespar.
Yeah, love it. I can't wait. I really want to see Grogu doing something awesome with the Force. But
and actually, so yes, my number 2 answer would be Grogu using Dark Lightning.
ooh,
But
that would be awesome.
But I'm gonna modify my first answer.
Okay.
I honestly want to see Moff Gideon beat the shit out of Mando.
I think you might get that. I really do. I think it's our Empire Strikes Back moment.
This is one of the things we've talked about, throughout the course of the season. And I like Mando when he is only average. I don't like him as Luke Skywalker, who's the chosen one, who's a Jedi, who's never going to lose.
Yep.
You know, and we have yet to see him go up against an actual enemy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would be, and especially, like I've said, I think the show's going 3 seasons, and yeah, if they really want to go full Empire Strikes Back and have it end with him, like he gets the shit beat out of him, and then just like Moff Gideon just like shoots him off his ship, like that's awesome.
While still having possession of Grogu.
Or
okay,
there was also your Boba Fett switch. So, or if he does beat him, hand-to-hand combat, gets Grogu back, and then Boba like hits him over the head and grabs Grogu and flies away. Also great.
I will say I'm here for any of those things that you said, especially Grogu using Force lighting. If the season ends with a happy ending and they beat Moff Gideon and Boba Fett and Fennec just fly away and Mando and Grogu walk into the sunset, I'm so out. Like there needs to be something more substantial than that.
I agree. There needs to be a problem that they need to solve still. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, we'll see. We only have less than a week now because we're recording this on Saturday. We have, now it's Sunday on the East Coast, but so we have less than a week to find out what Favreau and Filoni and company have in store for us in the finale of The Mandalorian. Willie, thank you so much. And as always, the Force will be with us.